Your brother is dead. Do you know what that means?
It means I'll become king.
Tywin doesn't have a shred of sentimentality. It's all about what's best for the family.
Tywin picks up where they left off. I think on some level, Tywin realizes that it might not be the worst thing that ever happened to the Lannister family to have an unmanageable psychopath taken out of the equation and a very decent, tractable, respectful young man put into his place.
Now what's crucial for Tywin is that Tommen be a better king than Joffrey ever would have been. And Tommen is very young, so he's going to need some help. And as far as Tywin's concerned, there's no one better to give help than Tywin.
We have a man who starves himself to death, a man who lets his own brother murder him, and a man who thinks that winning and ruling are the same thing. What do they all lack?
Tywin is schooling Tommen, and in doing so, insulting Joffrey as a bad king, and saying it right in front of his dead grandson's body and right in front of his daughter, who's standing there mourning her son.
Obviously, Cersei is not happy about this. Alina's performance in that scene, her silent performance during that part of the scene is one of my favorite performances in the episode.
I mean, the whole episode is kind of a series of inappropriate funeral scenes.
Jaime enters the scene, and then it becomes a very different scene.
Why have the gods made me love a hateful woman?
He's not saying he doesn't love her. He's saying that he wishes he loved somebody less hateful, but unfortunately, he loves her, and she happens to be his sister on top of it.
It becomes a really kind of horrifying scene because you see, obviously, Joffrey's body right there, and you see that Cersei is resisting this. She's saying no, and he's forcing himself on her. So it was a really uncomfortable scene and a tricky scene to shoot.
Daemon! Hide! Hide!
The wildlings have always seemed like a pretty rough group of people, and I think the Thenns are the wildlings that the other wildlings consider a very rough group of people.
The other wildlings we've met are kind of like the Hells Angels. You know, they're tough, but you kind of figure if you were friends with them, they'd be fun guys to hang out with.
The Thenns are pretty much the worst the wildlings have to offer.
The wildlings are not a single mass of people who have traditionally fought together. They're actually a congregation of tribes, most of whom have hated each other for generation after generation, and they've been killing each other as long as they've been killing men of the Night's Watch.
I'm going to eat them. Do you hear me? I'm going to eat your dead mama, and I'm going to eat your dead papa.
The Thenns are probably the most feared of all these northern tribes. Even amongst the wildlings, who are pretty combative people, they're the most warlike of the tribes. They're given to cannibalism and scarring their faces, and you know, everything for them is fighting and warfare and killing.
You're the worst shit in the Seven Kingdoms!
It's plenty worse than me. I just understand the way things are. How many stars they got to behead before you figure it out?
Arya and the Hound are rubbing off on each other and are learning from each other whether they like it or not and growing closer together at the beginning of this episode, but this scene shows that there's still a big gulf between them.
Arya's toughened up quite a bit since her first days, and she was always kind of a tough kid, but she's seen so much horror that she's become inured to a lot of it. She still has a kind of native sense of fair play. You know, there are things that seem right to her and things that seem wrong, and that doesn't change. Even as nasty as Arya might get and as much of a killer as she might become, she still does have this kind of native sense of right and wrong that she learned from her father and her mother.
The Hound operates on a much more purely, ruthlessly pragmatic level. He's all about surviving, and as he points out, this farmer has money, and he's not going to have it for long because he can't defend himself, and people who are bigger than him and meaner than him are going to come and take that money from him. In the Hound's mind, letting this man keep his money is almost an immoral act in itself because somebody else is going to have it come winter, and either it's going to be him or it's going to be somebody even worse than him.